Welcome to Violin Adventures number 259. In this episode, we answer your questions, so we'll jump right into it. Hope you enjoy.
Cheryl, could you tell us please where you get your tone woods from?
I get my tone wood all from Europe, mainly because the tone is really good, because the winters are so cold and the tree grows slower and very even. But I like to say, it's like us. How do we produce character in our lives? Through trials and tribulations. The more trials and tribulations we have, the more character we hope to end up with. So here we've got a beautiful piece of wood that's been through a very, very harsh winter, and so it's going to sing better. It's going to have a better tone.
What was the finish that you were putting on the inside of the violin before you closed it? Is it an antiquing or a varnish? Also, do you ever stain the violin before a finish goes on? Or do you put the colour in your varnishes?
Great question. First, let me show you how it's made and what it's made of, and maybe that'll help. So first of all, the solution that I'm making comes from the lac bug. It deposits this one time a year when they're mating. They deposit this on the branches of a tree, and you can buy it like this, or you can buy it ground up just a little bit, or in flakes, which is what I use. And I understand now they've purified it so much that the flakes are really thin and dissolve very quickly. And this is the end result. I dissolve it in denatured alcohol and let it sit for a little bit, and you get this beautiful gold color. Now I'm going to show you up close, and then I'll explain what it does for the instrument. Here you have the deposit of the lac bug on a branch of a tree. You can see there, that's kind of what it looks like. We've got a whole jar of it. Here it is ground up just a little bit, but you can already see the lac. This is what we get lacquer from. It's a beautiful substance. There's no smell. It's a very nice thing. And then here it is in the flake form, so it dissolves a little bit easier. Here is very fine flakes, and here's the finished product dissolving in the denatured alcohol. And it gives a beautiful golden color. So now that you've seen the process, it might make more sense. So we put this on the inside of the instrument. It's great for keeping other insects out, and also it preserves the wood. So the older the wood gets, the softer and softer it gets, and it begins to disintegrate. So when you have a very old piece of wood, 200, 300, 400 years old, the wood is very soft, and this helps preserve the wood from going so soft and just disintegrating. And yes, it improves the tone too, because you have a surface in there that is not absorbing the tone but letting it move freely. So actually three reasons here. It helps keep out bugs, it helps preserve the wood, and it improves the tone. We have to remember the violin is not a piece of furniture, so we never stain the wood. We need to seal the wood off, which is what we use the lac for. We seal the wood off, and then we add color, because we don't want any oil or any stain dissolving into the wood. We don't want anything to hold back the violin from really vibrating. My mentor, Albert Muller, experimented with all kinds of natural coloring and pigments natural pigments, different kinds of ways to make varnish, and I have all of this to show for it. But we ended up finding the best coloring I find is just getting a bottle of color extract that works real nicely in the varnish. But I'll show you up close all the things that he experimented with in order to find the perfect solution for varnish. And I really like his recipe because, as you can see, it's very clear. It covers the instrument very nicely, and it never sinks into the instrument, causing disruption to the vibrations and the tone. You want to remember, everything I do on an instrument is keeping in mind, what can I do to make this instrument vibrate better and sound better? That's my whole purpose in repairing an instrument, is how can I improve it? So just out of interest, you can see he used different kinds of gum. This is the alumi gum. Here he used this for color. That's some glue. You can see he also used these for color. Here's button lac. These were all used for making varnishes. This was made for color. There's another. Some of these I don't even know what they are anymore, but they're different resins. These you would dissolve in water for color, and you could get yellow or brown. Down here, this was used for color. Here's a you can see how that would have made a bright golden color. Back there, there's more rosin that he would melt. And then down here, of course, we're using pigments.
And could you tell us where you get the horsehair from that you use to rehair the bows?
So here we have the hair, natural hair. These are usually about 1 or 2 pounds of hair. And where do they come from? The hair needs to come from wild horses. So the hair comes from Siberia. They capture wild horses every about 5 years, trim their tails, and let them go again for another 5 years. It has to be wild horses or the hair won't be strong enough. Also, it's in Siberia in those harsh winters. It helps the hair be stronger too. Then the hair is shipped usually down to China or some places here in the United States where they'll clean the hair and bundle it up, and then we get it from there.
This person wonders what the dark powder and the white powder are that you use to give varnish an aged appearance and make it less shiny.
Okay, I have 2 bottles of powder here. The first one, when mixed with mineral oil, this turns black. And this is rotten stone, ground up rotten stone. And in this jar is pumice powder or pumice powder, however you would say it. And this is a lot harsher than the rotten stone.
Okay, Cheryl, here's a question for you about cleats. I have a question regarding the shapes of cleats. I've seen pyramids, diamonds, circles, squares, etc. Are these choices based on coverage area or are they more aesthetic?
So, okay, of course everything you do is a work of art when you're working on a violin, but I'm not thinking aesthetics at all. I'm thinking tone. And so each instrument I'm going to be adjusting the cleats for the best possible tone, and it's going to depend on how big the crack is, where the crack is. There's so many variables, but before we get into that, let's make some cleats. So here I have a piece of wood, and oh, I hate cutting up beautiful violin wood, because like this I want to get wood that's got really close grain. And as you can see, this piece is too small now to use for bass bars. So what's left here, the thin part, I'm going to make some cleats. So how thick do you make a cleat? Well, I keep it fairly thick when I make the cleat. I'm not going to make them too thin because you never know where they're going to go. If there's quite a curve in the violin or the cello, you're going to want a little bit of thickness so you can fit that in there. So cutting the cleat, I don't worry about it. I get it. Well, let's see. It's probably about 3 to 4 millimeters thick. There, I've got me a beautiful supply of cleat. I don't know if you can see the grain on this, but it's close grain. For small cleats, you want close grain and you want good tone wood, because the whole purpose of cleating the instrument is to improve the tone and, well, to close the crack, secure the crack, and improve the tone. And I have found that if you just glue the crack, the sound is so much better when there's a cleat on it, okay? And why the diamond shape? Well, if you think about it, if you're taking a cleat and the grain on the violin is going like this, and you put a cleat that's going like this, that's going to interrupt the vibrations. But if you take a cleat where the grain is still going in a downward direction, it will keep the vibrations going. So that's why I do a diamond shape. Now, how thick is it? After I have it glued on, I'm going to take it down as far as I can. The purpose is to just secure that crack so it won't open again, but also there's a fine line between hampering the instrument with all these cleats and thick ones and improving or helping improve the sound. So how do you check? Well, I take it down, I'll tap. Does it sound good? Are the vibrations really flowing through? Are my cleats too thick still? I just try to feel the instrument and see what it needs. So every instrument, every crack is different. So I start, with them thick. I want them thick so that I have room to fit the cleat wherever it might need to go. And then I can always take the cleat down further if I need to. But as you saw in the box, I have a lot of different sizes, because you might want something really small in one place and something a little bigger in another place if there's a couple cracks running together. So it really depends on the instrument, but hopefully that will help understand the cleating a little bit more.
What are your bass bar dimensions?
Dimensions of a bass bar. So I measure from the edge of the top, and from the bottom, I measure in 40 millimeters. And then the height, after I get done carving, the height is usually about the height of the depth of the curve in the top. So I'll usually measure it with a straight edge. But the main thing, and usually it's going to be around 6.5 millimeters thick, but the main thing is the tone. I'm always checking the tone, so I'm adjusting the bass bar according to the tone.
What is the correct position for the sound post? How tightly should it sit in the violin?
Okay, sound post. Where? It's going to go right behind the right foot of the bridge, but every instrument is different, so you got to find the sweet spot for the instrument that you're working on. And it needs to be a few millimeters away from the foot, but as far as how tight, that's something you kind of have to learn through experience. You don't want it too tight, it's going to choke the sound. You don't want it too loose, it loses its power. And you want it just in the right place. So it's a great question, but it's really hard to describe it. But you can get it just through experience. And just remember too, you always want to loosen the string so there's no pressure on the top when you're fitting your sound post. So it just takes a lot of experience and experimentation with the tone until you can find just the right place for that sound post. But every instrument is different. And
this question relates to the Baroque violin that you repaired recently. If this violin has been making music for 300 years, why is it then necessary to remove the bass bar, change the thickness of the top, and claim that the builder did shoddy work?
Okay, that question made me laugh. It's a good question. A violin that's been around 300 years making music. Well, if it's been around 300 years and been making music, let's leave it alone and don't touch it, right? But there's a lot of violins that lay around for 300 years and don't get played, and that's because there's a problem. Let's take a look at this one. Look at this violin. This is an old one. This is from 1824. It's a mess. Just in pieces, you know? And it's been laying around for probably 100 years at least right now. It wouldn't be laying around if it were making music, right? Let me show you some more. Okay, we're up here near the ceiling, and I've got violins all the way down here and all the way down the other end of the shop. Why are they up here? They're definitely not making music. Let's take this one for example. This will be a great one to talk about. So if you look there, all the way around the top of this shop are violins sitting around, and they're not making music. Oh my! There's some more over there. So all of that to say, so in a violin shop, when we make violins from scratch, right? We make them. We get a piece of wood and we carve the instrument, and our whole goal is to have a good sounding instrument that a player can use. Also, we repair instruments, but we only repair them if they need help. And there are a lot of violins that sit around, and why are they sitting around? It's because they don't have a good sound or they've been broken. And you have to remember, cheap violins, which don't sound good, can really discourage a player. So we have a lot of instruments that come in through China. They're getting a lot better, but there's always those that don't sound good, and a child will get discouraged from playing because of the sound. It's not good on their ears either. Okay, there's so many aspects that are. This is a great question because there's so many aspects we can cover. Also, if a customer cannot pay for a new handmade instrument, the best option then is to get an older one and improve it. And then you've got an instrument that's got a great head start, and you don't have to pay those thousands of dollars for a new one. So that's what I have here. I'll find some good old instrument from, say, Germany that was just quickly made, and I'll fix up the tone, and then the customer can have something that I worked on and improve the tone almost as if it were my instrument, but I don't charge as much because it is an older instrument. Someone else did the outside work and I finished up the inside work. So here I have in my hand a copy of a Stainer, it says. The label says a copy of a Stainer. Well, it looks to me like it's just a copy of a Strad. So these labels were just thrown in there. I want to just explain to you, just like we have really cheap violins from China, they're made really quickly. Most of them are put through a machine. They're not handmade at all except to set the neck. So they did the same thing back in Germany, only this was back in the 1800s and 1900s when they didn't have machinery. So how did they do it? They had one house over here that would make tops and another house over here that would make backs. And you would just tell this house, give me as many tops as you can, and this house, give me as many backs as you can. And then they pushed all the pieces together and shipped it out to America. And one of the reasons why they kept it thick is they didn't want their tops to be cracking on the way over. So just keep it thick. As long as it looks like a violin, you can sell it cheap. You got to make it fast. That was their thinking. So the people that were making these violins, it wasn't just one person. It was one here and one there. They just made them quickly. They didn't know any science behind it. It was just a job for them to push out as many instruments as they can. Okay, so it wasn't one maker making the instrument. It was a bunch of people just making parts as fast as they can. So the nice thing is, if you can redeem one of those instruments, if a good professional maker can improve one of those instruments, then you've got a little gem. But we take our knowledge that we've gained through making instruments, hundreds of instruments, and we apply it to one of these that isn't finished. If your instrument is happy and singing, we don't touch it at all. Also, if an instrument isn't sounding good and the customer is not happy, the first things we do is just check the sound post. Sometimes just moving that sound post will make a huge difference. Next, we'll check the bridge. And if all else fails, if we've changed the strings, then we'll open it up. You have to remember, on this channel, I'm showing you great, exciting repairs, but that doesn't happen to every instrument. Those are just the exceptions, right? Most of the time, we're just changing a sound post or moving the sound post and changing the strings, and that's it. So we do not touch an instrument if it's sounding good and responding well. We leave it alone, right? And also, just to note, we are only making these huge changes on an instrument that is manufactured from the 1800s or 1900s. They're not made by a specific maker.
What do you do with the unused portion of hide glue?
I usually don't let the glue go any longer than 2 weeks because it will get smelly and it will lose the power. So normally anything left over, I'll use it up in the next week. If it goes bad, then I just take it outside and dump it in the grass. It's completely natural and it just disappears. We just had a beautiful soaking rain. Everything is green again. The skies are blue. Let's go in and see what's happening. So we've covered the sealer coat and all the steps of the lac. We've covered the polishing, the bass bar, and the sound post. We've covered cleats. We've covered those old manufactured instruments. Well, here we are in the shop. As you can see, there's work to be done. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your wonderful comments, for your thumbs up, and thank you to the new subscribers. Next week, we've got a big repair. So until then, bye.